Hello there, good evening. Welcome back to Celtic World Order podcast. As always, I'm Steve O'Martin. It's a pleasure to welcome you back here on the show for another wee live chat in terms of what we're looking at today. Well, you already know that. You've already got a bad taste in your mouth. It is, of course, the annual general meeting, or in this case, the annual general madness, because that went down perhaps exactly how we all expected it. We all knew that the groundswell from the collective, the fan feeling towards this board for the countless failings over numerous seasons, that just were typified by the lack of ambition that saw us fail to qualify, failed to tool up for the Champions League. But bear in mind, that was not the overriding factor of why this happened. That was merely that additional wee straw that snapped the camel's back. It was all building up to then. The dysfunction, the contempt for the fans, the contempt for the managers at the time, it all came ahead. So we kind of knew that there was going to be some strong words going into this AGM this afternoon. Well, not this afternoon. It ended before this afternoon, early morning. We all knew what was going down. The fans let them know for the off. They were vocal, they were visual, and they sent a direct message. How it panned out, though, some might have expected it. Some maybe thought that we would get through it. But alas, we didn't, because they halted it to an end after a previous wee adjournment because the heat was starting to get a bit too hot for them. And now we ask ourselves, where do we go from here? I think we didn't learn anything out of the AGM. The contempt of this board for the likes of you and I and all other fans out there is extremely strong, and it doesn't look as if it's going away. I think perhaps at the end of this, they were maybe hoping that the joint up thinking of the fan groups would implode. But if anything, if you look through social media, I think it's fair to say that it has only further galvanized them and basically confirmed, again, as they always do, what we already know. Not fit for purpose. A fucking disgrace. Their time is up. Expired, as the posts say. Now, we're going to get in about it. There's loads to chat about. Get them up. As you can see, I will just say straight off the bat, as you can see, I'm on my own. So I know that everybody's going to want to get in there. Do bear with me, right? It's a hard gig tonight. There's loads of comments. I'll try my best to get up as many of them as I possibly can. I really want to get your thoughts on it. I'll give you mine on it. And of course, I will, in my usual uncompromised way, I will look at it as objectively as I can. But for the benefit of doubt, for the avoidance of any doubt, I think this board have absolutely done themselves. I think that all they have done is further angered the fan base with arrogance. They're not going to bow down. We'll go on to Ross Desmond. That was the underlying tone there. And just some of the language that was used through the course of the AGM just underpinned how much they really don't give a fuck what you think, what I think. And they're just going to continue, as far as they're concerned, to do things their way. Because do you know what? They know best. Just you sit down, pat in the head, have your wee belly tickled there, shut up, leave it to the businessmen. Because what would you ever know about wanting the best for a football club? Well, who else better to run it than us? So we will get in about it. I will get up as many of them. Let us know what your thoughts are. Listen, it's all going to circle around that Ross Desmond statement, isn't it? But we'll cover out some of the blows as it went along. But before we do, as always, thank you for joining us. If you're watching live, lovely stuff. If you're watching retrospectively, we really appreciate the support. We are, I think, about 30 away now from 3,000. Come on. I know there's 30s out there watching that haven't already subscribed. The stats tell me that. I think about half of the folk watching still haven't subscribed. And I don't know why, because it costs you nothing. Hit the subscribe button if you like it. Give it the big fat thumbs up and share it. Get it out there. Get more people in this community, particularly on topics like this. We need to be talking about it. We need to be having more dialogue about these things and come together to call out the failings and the contempt that this board shows for you and I. So get yourself involved there. All the other social media links are below. And of course, I'm not going to do it. I just want to kick on. You know what by now, if you want to help support the channel, you can. Member section, optional. Just put it all together. So let's get down to business. Now, there's quite a lot of you starting to come in here. We have Paul, just go through some of them, say hello. He is on the YouTube. And there we go. Football is Life is saying the border embarrassing and utter garbage. We're all talking utter nonsense. Yes. And despite the backdrop that we were getting into, despite they knew that we're going to be under pressure, they never failed to let you down, did they? Because there were still classic Peter Lawwell, I know better, shut up quips all the way through it. That just shows you exactly the attitude that they were getting into that. I think they expected, they knew they'd have to be completely stupid to not know what they were getting into. But did I think that they would have played it the way that they did? In all honesty, no. I expected a wee bit of arrogance and pat, sit down, but I didn't quite expect it to be to the level that it was. So there you go. What do I know? For maybe I'm just being a wee bit stupid and thinking that. We have McLaughlin on there as well. Apparently there's 2 streams running. I really don't know how that happened. That is absolutely bananas, but there you go. 2 streams running. I don't know what's going on there. So let's see some other people that are in here. Yes, as Jay is saying, the cynical side of me would say that this was their goal all along, as the statement was waiting for us all in the room. Now, we'll go on to that statement. And I think that the way that they played that out against the backdrop, it summed up exactly. It was premeditated. And I will say this is not supporting Ross Desmond in any way, shape or form. But by God, absolute balls of steel to read out that statement, knowing what it contained, when you had just been looking around that room and saw how much a disgrace things were for you. Yes, that's contempt. Yes, that is we know better. But you've also kind of got to say, a wee bit mental, a wee bit gutsy, because I tell you what, it would have been easier to just pivot, wouldn't it, against the face of anger. But as we'll go on to when I discuss that, I also think, whether I don't want to give the guy credit, it was also a wee bit clever, because he knew exactly what he was doing. It was bait. And as we all know, after that statement, the bait was taken, and it gave them an excuse to just pack up their toys and see you later and go there. We've got Plunge in there. He's saying he's watching on YouTube, today was the last straw. The contempt and patronising for all our supporters, not just shareholders, was a disgrace. Cowards walked away. Hope they all packed their bags tonight. Yep, we can only hope, but I definitely think that looking at that, they are going nowhere at this moment in time. And I think that no matter how many things that we do, this is definitely going to be a long, drawn out battle for power, if you want to call it. I mean, we're not going to get power as fans, but the power, what we want, meaningful change. So listen, let's dive straight in about it. As best as I can, as I say, we'll go back and forward, because there's a lot to cover here, and I'll give you my thoughts on it and let me know what your thoughts are as we address it. Now, as we all know, you all watched it. They started off, you're watching it on YouTube, it started off with some beautiful scenes. As you can see, we've used that as well for the thumbnail here. This was as they came into the boardroom. Well, not the boardroom, they came into the function suite, and they were a large amount, a resounding chorus of boos, and rightfully so. Many of the fans present, the shareholders, opted to hold up the red card and give a wee visual demonstration of what they think on it. Must be said, not everybody did it, not everybody chose to do it, but by large, the majority of people in that room done that and made it happen for them. I'll be honest with you, I've just want to double check here. I don't know why I've got 2 streams. I'll tell you right now, if you bear with me, I will have a wee look and check out what's going on there. Do you know, I actually did see that, but I didn't quite know why it's created. It must be a wee glitch with the YouTube and the StreamYard, but either, who cares? We're still talking about it. It's still here. It's all good. But yes, they came into a resounding chorus of boos, and that was setting the tone nice and early. They came in and they set out their stall, as you'd imagine. And I thought, again, considering the circumstances, considering we knew there was going to be a lot of things to be talking about, I found it a wee bit crazy that they decided to basically turn around and say, it's going to be 12:30, by the way, 12:30, and we're done. Make sure you exit such and such a way. Come on. I know I know these things are scheduled, right? But given the circumstances, given what we were building up to, would it have not just been better to sort of, be a wee bit more sort of welcoming? I know that's not their character, but to sit there and essentially lay out the cards and say, look, we know there's a lot to cover here. We know there's a lot of discontent in the room. We will get through it. We'll work on this together. No matter how long it takes, we're going to be here. We're going to talk through it. We're going to try and be like adults here, and we'll answer your questions as best as we can, blah, 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 blah. But no, they decided to just tell you nice and early, get yourself sorted. You're going to be at the door by 12:30, whether you like it or not, and that's it. Deal's the deal, right? Again, sum up how it goes with them. But yes, what I want to say as well, I didn't mention this beforehand. I don't know if you've seen this. There was loads of banners in and around the stadium to welcome them, put down, I imagine, late last night into the morning, so that when they walked through the door, they knew pretty much exactly what they were getting there. And yes, as has been said there, there's a lot more numbers were at the meeting today, according to reports. They should have said they probably go over the time because of the numbers. I think that's safe to say. But again, what also coming back to Mr. Chairman Law, on that one, well, he couldn't help but have a wee snipe and a wee jibe at the fans, could he? Because in reference to the quite good turnout, the exceptional turnout, if you will, he said words to the effect of, well, some fans don't normally attend these AGMs. Ha 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 ha. Make funny of it. That is just, again, sums up the man. It wouldn't have been an AGM, would it, without him trying to come out with some sort of snide remark. Normally, it's a wee snide remark that's at somebody else's expense that isn't the fans, and he maybe gets a couple of wee spartan of laughters. Well, nobody was laughing today because everybody was roundly pissed off, and that started from there. So looking through it there, who was present? Peter Law, Brian Rose, Brian Wilson, Michael Nicholson, Sharon Brown, Chris Mackay, George Campbell, women's manager Elena Sidiku, and also we had Martin O'Neill had a wee brief cameo, and then he was wheeled out to the media later on. We will talk about that because I really want to know what your thoughts were on that statement, because talk about things not resonating with fans, again, some of the words and the way that Martin O'Neill put things together have got some people's back up as well, and I want to know what you think about that. Mr. Allison wasn't present. We were told of his absence because there were other outside factors that he couldn't be, but that was what happened there. Now, from the off, as we said, everybody was very, very vocal, very loud, allowing everybody in there to know exactly how they felt. Plenty of shouting out, maybe people say out of turn, but just letting them know, shouts of liars, cheats, whatever you name it, it was all getting fired out there, hot at them from the start. Now, what they normally do with these EGMs is they'll roll out a wee bit of VT, right? They like to show you a wee goodwill type of thing. Usually it'll be, trophy lifts and goals going in and all the good stuff that we are doing. Well, they wanted to play that, and one of the sort of figureheads, if you will, of the collective stood up and basically says, in short, we're here to represent quite a lot of various fan groups, as you well know. We don't want this. We don't want to see this goodwill push. Let's just get in about it. Let's start taking your questions. Let's, hear what you've got to say. You're going to hear what we've got to say. Can we please move on? And they were told, basically, they couldn't talk. Sit down. Shut up, let's get on with it. And as you'd imagine, that then led to further disgruntled shareholders, much so that it got to the stage where they decided that they were going to adjourn for 30 minutes, probably because it was just starting to get a wee bit too hot for them, and they had to recalibrate, take stock, come out, dust themselves off, hope that everybody, the emotions had simmered away, that it was a wee, short, sharp shock. The emotions would boil down and it come down. Chance to sack the board as they are getting themselves off that stage. Let's have a wee look at this here. This is some of the... Exactly what we need. And there's more. There's more.
In the second part, the floor will be opened up for a Q&A session, with the meeting closing no later than 12:30 p.m. Please do keep the area at the front clear for questions later. Thank you.
Talk about a clear message. It says, I really would love to know exactly, not what they were projecting on that stage, but after the event, what they think about it. I have my sort of ideas about it. Now, as they came back, some of the boos had subsided a wee bit. Perhaps folk had realised, look, this is quite early and they've adjourned it. The last thing we want to do is get this cancelled like mega early. Don't get me wrong, we'll get on to that because it didn't last too long after that. But perhaps that's maybe the thinking of those in the room to think, right, look, let's just take stock. We've made it clear where we're at here. Let's get them back in here. And as they came back, this again is all about, I think it's all about the language and the way that you communicate. Celtic are terrible at that. We know that absolutely. Celtic are garbage at communicating with people. But in facing a hot crowd, unhappy to say the least, you think that camera heads in there, they need to come across with camera heads. We must prevail. They all talk about, remember the statement about Brendan Rodgers and talking about professionalism and presenting in the right way and so on and so forth. That was their opportunity to perhaps be a wee bit more professional. Again, I know it must be hard. I'm not defending them. I'm just saying it must be hard if you're getting absolutely shit thrown at you to maybe keep your calm. But do you know what? You're getting paid an absolute fortune. You're CEOs, chairmen, chief financial officers of a fucking massive club, a huge company as well, and you take a shit ton of money. So you need to be equipped. You need to be ready to deal with these things, particularly when you are in an extremely emotional backdrop and industry like football. We all know football fans are passionate. It's a working person's game. It's very much in the DNA of the vast majority of fans that they are, they are what they are. We are what we are. We're honest, hard-working people, and we're paying good money and getting served up dross, and we're getting let down. So what do you expect a wee bit? Now, what I would say is from what I've saw in the videos and what I've been told from folk that were out there, I don't think it verged into anything that was unsavoury. It was generalised sort of discontent getting shouted out there. These are liars or that kind of stuff. There was nothing that seemed to be too outrageous that would, result in people getting harmed or anything like that. And that is the way it should be. I want to say that. I do not want to see, moving forward, anything turning sour and verging into being sort of criminal or not above board. I think it's important that the fans manage to, if possible, just keep a lid on things and do things properly, because the one thing that we don't want to do is come off looking bad and also giving them further ammo. That's the last thing we need to do. But yes, they come back, and as I says, what were they greeted with? Was it, all right, we've adjourned, okay, we understand that you are unhappy, let's calm down, let's get through this. No, it was, again, shut up, sit down and spoke to like a child, which was only going to rub people up the wrong way again. But I will say, they probably knew what they were doing. I think everything that they've said, every move that they've made has been calculated within an inch, because they want that reaction. So Peter Law, this is what I'm told, he says, if there's a repeat of this behaviour, I'll have no issue with closing the meeting. He just comes straight out with it. Shut up, do as you're told, sit there, and so on and so forth. If you start to get out of line, we'll just call it a day. And I'll be on you, boo you, how dare you be unhappy about what's going on there. And that is it. That is the tone of what happened. Now, that led to a partial walkout from some of those present. Clearly, they just went, fuck this. They're no interested. This is not going to go the way we want to do. We're just going to sit here. They're not going to listen to us. They're just going to sit there and tell us exactly what they want to tell us. It's not going to be a conversation. It's going to be sit down, shut up, and we're going to get spoken at, not spoken with. And that is the biggest thing that is just blowing this up. Now, I want to try and get through some of the comments there. Thomas is saying the fans played right into the board's hands. The board got exactly what they wanted. I have my thoughts around that. What I will say is I will not criticise fans who have a platform to go there and be in an audience with these people and be genuine, be honest, and put across their feelings. Love the red card stuff. I think it's such a basic but simple, illustration. It's so visual. It makes it happen. The booing, absolutely. When they come on, they sack the board, absolutely. What I will say is, And I understand that when you're getting spoken at like a complete and utter moron, that it must be hard for some people to, keep a lid on it. And I understand emotions blow over. And to be honest, this is a lot of the emotions that these board members were getting faced with today was, almost self-penned, because it's a culmination of things over many, many seasons of, fans getting rubbished, fans getting cast aside, not listened to, ignored, treated with complete and utter contempt, and the status quo marching on. That, yeah, as I said earlier, it's all these wee things, the straw that snapped the camel's back. People were going to go in there hot-headed, right? So that could have been avoided. They could have been into a, AGM of years gone by where we've still been unhappy, but nowhere near where it is. They allowed things to get into an almost critical state, an absolute mess. And then they're probably sitting there and looking around and going, well, we knew this was going to be tight, but I mean, come on, blah, blah, blah. How dare they? Didn't expect this, but like, you kind of did. You've let the fans down so much. You have, spat in our faces so much that people were always going to blow up. Now, I'm not saying that makes it right. Not at all. I'm not condoning any sort of actions that people, if I don't know, I wasn't there, if one or two folk, I don't know if they did. I'm just saying broadly speaking, if, probably didn't, but if one or two emotions boiled over, you can probably imagine that was going to happen. And they should have known that was going to happen. But yes, did we play into their boards' hands? Maybe. I think that's exactly what they wanted. And as I say, I think that they completely calculated everything they'd done, because it just allowed them to go, there we go, that's it. See, this is what we're dealing with. Idiots, morons, thugs. That is the narrative that they will now push. And again, it's a balancing act, because yes, fans, 100%, go in there, tell them, don't miss, shoot your shot, do not miss, be honest, and let them know the feeling face to face when you can see the whites of their eyeballs must be done. But at the same time, I was talking about it among some different chat groups as I was getting updates fed through to me after the postponement. And I says, right, it's imperative now that those in the room just try to cool the jets a wee bit. Bring it back, dial it in, get through this meeting, get through to the full question and answer bit, because that's the bit we want. We want to ask them the hard questions. Let's get through to that and then allow all the voting and stuff. I thought that it was massive that we done that. And I do feel that by not getting there, it has given them ammunition to use, which they will use, let's be totally honest. But on the flip side, I think them calling it a day, it's obviously going to galvanise the support, because the vast majority will say completely ran away for it, shat the bed, couldn't handle it. If you can't handle the fire, then get out of the kitchen. If you can't stand the heat, it's not for you. I think that's the vast majority of the fans will look at that. They will look at it from the perspective of, as I say, this is what we're dealing with. What do you expect? And they will probably, I wouldn't be surprised, they will probably toe the safety line, that they felt that it was an unsafe environment for them, which is a shame, because, as I say, I wasn't there, but as far as I could see, it was only ever verbal. It was only ever booing and, as I say, calling out lies, rubbish, all that kind of stuff. Anything that I've heard that didn't boil over into anything other than that. And you've got to expect that in that kind of environment. You're essentially answering to shareholders. Those people in front of you put their good money, their hard-earned money into that club, and they expect it to perform accordingly on the pitch, as well as the big bit that they love, the off the pitch, the financials. So I think that, yes, there's two ways of looking at it. But the main thing here is, let's get into it, Ross Desmond's statement, because that was, we talk about straws snapping camel's back, that is the one that it just shut it all down. And I think that it was, quite frankly, an absolute disgrace. It was a complete and utter slap in the face. He might as well have just stood up and went, see all yous, fuck off. We don't need you. Piss off, go away, leave it to us. See, if he said that, it would have had the exact same effect. But what I want to do is, you've probably seen it, you've probably read it. I want to read through it, so bear with me. I'll try not to trip over my words. And I'll give you my thoughts on some of the bits here. Now, he's representing it, but he's there as the sort of placeholder for his old man, for big Dermot that's probably out in the golf course somewhere. Now, I don't know to hand the exact sort of figures, but I think this is maybe, 10, maybe as much as 15 years since he last attended and graced us with his, all-seeing eye presence at a AGM, which is quite frankly an absolute disgrace for a guy who kind of rules this club with an iron fist, as we all know. Everybody's beholden to him. He's holding all the aces. We have to run everything by him. And I just quite frankly find it a shambles, particularly in this backdrop, that he wasn't there. Now, I understand he probably didn't want that smoke. He didn't want to get involved. He didn't want to put up with all the shite, all the pressure. No, it's trivial to him. I can't be doing with that. That's too much hassle. I'll just leave the minions to go and do it, and they can take, absolute piles of shite off folk, which again, justifiably so. But he sent his boy, and with him, if you thought his statement that was on Brendan Rodgers was horrendous, well, strap yourself in, by the way, because it kind of struck me. He's reading on behalf of his dad, but he's also saying it's me, so it was probably like the Desmonds, I think. So, starts off, times of challenge call for unity and understanding, as well as honest responses to reasonable questions. We didn't even get the questions, didn't allow it, didn't want the questions. Yet, there are those out there who seem to lie in wait for any opportunity and any small opening to stir up toxicity around the club. They like that word, toxicity. The Desmonds love that. Remember, it was Brendan Rodgers that was stirring up the toxicity. And now, turning around saying that, so it's fine. I'm saying, yep, there we go. The Desmonds. Wasn't that a sitcom in the 90s? I don't know, but I tell you what, the Celtic board could be a sitcom. Think of like Fawlty Towers being a fucking football stadium, right? Somebody should make this, right? See if, Only the Excuse was any good. They would do that. They would run with that idea because it's a fucking joke. And in fact, you could pair it off with the joke that's going across the road at Rangers as well, because both the boards of both clubs are just as bad as each other. That's a fucking joke, man. Anyway, he then continues, stirring up toxicity. How dare you out there, and I'm pointing at you right through that camera, how dare you and I that want deep, meaningful, purposeful change. We want our club to move forward. We want our club to start acting like a big club. We want to start acting responsibly, showing ambition. How dare we demand and ask for more? You are a big troublemaker. How dare you? Come on, seriously. He then says, this is the best bit. Let me start by dispensing with the absurd caricature some people spread about my father and the state of his Celtic credentials. He's a passionate and lifelong Celtic supporter. Well done, so is everybody watching this here. But we don't have money in the club. We can't directly affect the club to the level that you can, mate. Get on board. He first put his money into Celtic more than 30 years ago when Fergus McCann asked him to help. Aye, cheers, mate. We appreciate it. But really, since then, how much have you actually put back into the club? Yes, you have, and not giving credit where it's due. He's done us a solid very occasionally. Brendan Rodgers the first time, Martin O'Neill, we know that was him. Various signings that have came in that he's sort of hit the big button and went, aye, let's do this. So, well done you, mate. Well done you. But that should be your job, right? As Roy Keane says, it's your job. Am I meant to sit here and just clap and get the bunt out for you doing your job a couple of times since that original investment? No, mate, because he doesn't put any more money, to my knowledge, into this club. He'll have bought up more shares, but coming with that, dividends and drawing out the club. When was the last time he actually properly invested in the club? Because it's his wee plaything, and he likes probably going around world golf course shows and telling everybody, I own Celtic, when you don't own Celtic, mate. But that is what he likes. Celtic are a wee plaything. Start putting your money where your mouth is. So back to this ridiculous. When Fergus McCann asked him to help, right? He became the principal state shareholder when Fergus sold out, and he took on the responsibility that came with that. He wants the club to be healthy, successful, and still thriving decades and even centuries from now. Funny way of showing it, because we've allowed ourselves to fall asleep at the wheel. We've crashed into the wall, and we are in a state of disrepair at this moment in time. The board shares those desires, and that's why the board respects financial reality. See, you and I out there that look at those accounts and see 80 odd £million in the bank, we're fucking idiots, because that's there, that has to be there. Well, news alert, it doesn't, because see, if you get down to Premier League right now, no different waters, more money. I believe it's only Tottenham who have more money in the bank than Celtic. Quite simply, that is it, right? Celtic have a lot of cash reserves, and we are in a tiny, tiny pond, by the way. So it's not as if we need them to that tune. See, if you were pulling back maybe, I don't know, 30, 40 million, I could understand. I could go, all right, cool, nice wee wedge there. 8 odd million, come on, seriously, wake up here. But no, you know, we need that. We need that. Financial reality. Stop thinking about signing players. But you be mental. Signing players? Pff, come on. Why would we spend money? Let's just get to HMRC and government tax. Let's give it to them for corporate tax. We were told that we didn't want to do that, and the best way to spend it. But no. Financial reality. They just don't get it, do they? For smart people, they're incredibly stupid, if that makes sense. We act prudently, not recklessly. Those who accuse the club of hoarding cash and being in it for the money display a deep misunderstanding of financial responsibility. I mean, again, how could you or I or anybody else out there not understand financial responsibility? Now, I know it is a big departure from the lofty heights of being a CEO or a key shareholder in a massive organisation like Celtic Football Club. But I'm pretty sure most folk out there have, I don't know, bills, stuff to pay, mortgages, car payments, credit cards, you name it, blah, 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 blah. We kind of know a wee bit about having to manage money, maybe not on that scale. But again, I come back to it. We've just watched this bank balance grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And nothing has changed. Loads of money in the bank, no strategy put out to us, no plan, communicated. See if they've got a brilliant plan for this that's going to tell us about this financial reality we're meant to be living in. And please do share. Tell us, is it infrastructure? Is it, the fabled hotel and museum? I don't care. Let us know, because nobody will understand why we're saving all this money unless you're telling us directly what it's for. Just turning and saying, well, you can't understand. You'll never understand. That's not an answer. That's absolutely ridiculous. The board's fiduciary, the board's fiscal duty of care is the shareholders, to the supporters and the future of this club. We don't declare dividends to distribute surplus cash to ordinary shareholders, as many other businesses do. No, we wouldn't do that. We would just keep it for ourselves. Cash is retained and used to sustain and develop the club. Okay, sustain. We've been doing that for a long time. The status quo, as I like to call it. We have sustained. And as Brendan Rodgers says, if you want to maintain, which is another way of looking at sustain, he's not the man for you. And if we want to kick on and not maintain, they're not the board for us. So apparently they're going to develop the club. As Chris Mackay explained in the video, Celtic must maintain strong reserves and contingencies to protect against unforeseen circumstances. The self-fulfilling prophecies are back. Sound the alarm. Remember that one about when you don't get in the Champions League? You're allowed to absorb the blow. Now, one thing I would say is contingencies. What are they? Are they planning? Have they got somewhere on their whiteboard in the hangway? Have they got like global pandemic part 2 and it's underlined or something? Because the one thing I will say is that's the only time that money in the bank's actually come in and really done something well for Celtic, which was kept them afloat. Well, not kept them afloat. We were always going to be kept afloat, but prevented us from having to take ridiculous government loans, to sort of keep ourselves afloat. So it did that, but come on, is that going to happen anytime soon? Let's get real here. No, it isn't. So that's just another joke there. The financial strength is what gives us independent stability and the ability to make our own decisions and not be beholden to anyone else. In other words, we'll do what we want and we don't need to listen to you out there because they're not beholden to us fans, by the way. You might as well have just said that because that's the undertone. This is a cracking bit. I love this. Those who talk about the club not having kicked on since 2003 ignore the enormous change in the financial landscape of football in that period. It has created a gap which keeps growing and challenges every club in a smaller European league. Most supporters understand that. Most of us understand that, apparently. Of course, clubs can still punch above their weight, their financial weight, and we should aspire to do that. But if you swing and miss, you risk the very stability of the club. That would be profoundly irresponsible. Oh, fucking hell. Oh, I just need a minute to absorb that. Oh, I mean, seriously. There is many clubs out there. Just look at some of the clubs that have popped us out of Europe in years gone by. Look at your Club Bruges. Look at Sporting Lisbon. Look at Porto. Look at, there's many more. All with so much smaller resources. Look at Midtjylland, for fuck's sake, right? Tiny stadium, small reserves, develop my team, turning it over season, being profitable, being progressive, bringing in 20 million, spending 15. So, come on. All with significant riches, less riches in the bank. Ridiculous. Don't throw that out there. That's up there with that push that they gave us about a European tax and why we couldn't sign players. They just try to throw out a smorgasbord of absolute pish jargon and hope that you go, well, it's well above my head. I couldn't work that out. They then go on. Oh, the financial independence of this club was jeopardised in the bin. We're talking about the fucking 1990s here, man. And we must never allow ourselves to fall in that position again. Oh, wow. I mean, come on. Come on. We are so far removed for any potential of bloody well the 1990s. It's not even funny. Why on earth would you throw that up there? They might as well have just went, and remember Rangers in 2012. Whoa! That's what they might have done. I mean, this is embarrassing. This is pathetic that he's casting up a time when Celtic had fuck all in the bank. They had absolute charlatans. They had a small-time family-run business and people digging their heels in. Celtic are light years away from that. The money in the bank, that's not going anywhere. You can't tell us how much money we've got in the bank and we're being financially prudent, but then say, but it might run out overnight. Remember the 90s? I mean, come on, this is embarrassing. And we must never allow ourselves to fall in that position again. Here's a newsflash for you. See, going and spending 30, dare I say even 40 million 1 year in a transfer window, it's not going to kill us, by the way. It's simply not going to kill us. It's not going to happen, right? Celtic are a marketing financial juggernaut. We are a juggernaut that should be more than a juggernaut. But in fact, we're more like an Arctic lorry when we should be a juggernaut. The potential for exponential growth is outrageous. Celtic aren't going bust. It's not going to happen, Mr. Law. It's not going to happen, Mr. Desmond. It's not going to happen, Mr. Nicholson. It's not going to happen, Mr. Mackay, and all the rest of you lackeys on the board. Plug your brains in. You tell us how smart you are, how clever you are, and how well equipped you are for the job, but you seem so dense that you genuinely believe these things. It's absolute mental. We consistently strive to improve, to become more competitive and go deeper into Europe, do you? You tell that to that summer transfer window. Tell that to the January transfer window when you let Kyogo go and with glaring holes in the squad. Tell that to the various other managers over the seasons, Ange Postecoglou and Neil Lennon, that have been calling you out for the same thing. You simply don't. You do the bare minimum to hope to get in, and then you suck it and see, and let's see what happens when we get there. You don't push on. You've no intention of pushing on. January is your chance to do that, but guess what? You won't do it because this is just words. This is just more spin to feed garbage to folk and hope that some people take it and eat it. Oh, and there's no doubt that we get things wrong and make mistakes. No shit. And here's the line. And we will try to learn from them. How many seasons have we been trying to learn from mistakes? Seriously. It's like, I'm sorry. So just constantly being a bastard, doesn't it? And then saying, I'm sorry. What Celtic are to us fans, this board, and I know it's a very maybe harsh comparison. It's like an abusive relationship. We love this club so much. We love it. We want the best for it. We want it to work. We want it to thrive. But our partner in this relationship treats us like absolute shit. And they occasionally say, we're sorry. We're really sorry. We'll never do that again. We'll learn from it. I promise you. We love you. We've got best at your heart, intentions in our heart to help you. And sometimes fans eat it and they accept it and they take it. And then they get let down again. Sorries are too late now. This has went too far. Sorries are not going to cut it. And I'm sure you out there will fully agree with that. Our model is far from perfect. But for the most part, it has served us well for 20 years. Yes, it has. As I say, it's the status quo, but that is the problem. Celtic have the DNA, the footprint, the foundations of a very well-run, good business model. It's not perfect. Absolutely not. I have said Celtic are ran good to well as a club and a business. Not excellent, not class leading, not world class. They're on the cusp of getting it right. But so much needs to change. But from everything from sponsorship deals to, season tickets, to giving back to the fans, to investment in infrastructure and players and the footprint of the stadium, it's all well behind. They are happy to just turn over, predictable amounts. Well, we'll get X amount each year on our financial stuff for the merchandise. We'll get Y on tickets. We'll get this, that, and they kind of predict it, and it is predictable, but they're never willing to sort of just, throw the net out a wee bit further. They're never committed to trying something completely different and mixing it up. It's like a 10-year deal with Adidas. Are you trying to tell me that the 10-year deal was the best one out there? No. What anybody sensible would have done is, well, we're fucking massive for you. We are selling shit tons. We're probably easily in your top 3 sellers worldwide for football kit and, merchandise. So what we're going to do is we'll do a 2-year deal with you and we'll revisit this after the 2 years. But no, they've just went, oh, brilliant, 10 year, come in here. And that's my point. That is my point. It has served us relatively well. But they never change. They never deviate from the norm. There's a scared, they're frightened to sort of move forward. And it will only keep us in this same position whilst we have people who are so small-minded, so short-sighted, and they only want to keep what's in place, protect the wee bubble at all costs, never take a risk. So we will not be bullied by aggressive or irrational factions. That's you and I and everybody else out there calling them out and asking for change. We will not be railroaded by those whose only vocation in life is to be anti-establishment and by those who try to degrade the club. Our focus is on what matters, improving the club step by step, systematically, and even risking its future, and without ever risking its future. Investing in improving recruitment, investing in data and analysis, upgrading facilities, enhancing the stadium, and trying to make Celtic stronger in every way. Absolute garbage. Criticism and advice are welcome and the right of every supporter, but some of what they have seen recently is not constructive, it is destructive, and it is cynical. That, again, is talking to all yous out there, by the way. All it does is strengthen our resolve to protect the integrity and stability of Celtic Football Club, led by Peter and our executive, led by Michael, are dedicated Celtic people. Just remember that. They're just like you and I. They hurt when things don't go wrong. They get sleepless nights in excellent beds, very expensive beds, and massive gaffs that they're paid. The heated driveways, don't worry. Big Pedro's driving, covered in frost this winter, that's for sure. The attempts to dehumanise and vilify them is shameful. These are people with families. They love the club every bit as much as anyone else here. And when they're not performing, they suffer just as much as anyone. They work tirelessly often under intense pressure. They are paid to work tirelessly and under intense pressure. That comes with the territory of being a chairman or a CEO of a massive football club with a hugely passionate and committed fan base like Celtic. They do an outstanding job for this club, and we are very lucky to have them. Pat on the head, there's your belly rub, sit down, shut up, I've spoken, how dare you question them? And if ever there was a tone in that statement from Dermot Desmond via son that says you can protest all you want, you can boo all you want, you can boycott all you want, we are going nowhere, then that is it. To finish up, he says, of course, we are not blind to our shortcomings. We can communicate better. We can recruit better. We can compete better. But we will do it responsibly, sustainably, and always in the best interests of Celtic. Celtic was founded as a club open to all, and we have a tradition of having the greatest fans in the world. We must now protect that reputation that was created over generations. The behaviour of certain sections increasingly brings the club and its fan base into disrepute. The incident a few weeks ago at the Falkirk match was symptomatic of wider problems. These people are bullies. They try to hijack the good name of Celtic supporters. We cannot allow them to define who we are. We are well aware of the target that has been put on my back as I say this. And as you can imagine, that got exactly the response that it probably expected from them. That came out there, and I will say that, and I said this at the start of the show, that's bait. Because the reading of that room, the feeling was tangible, you know, it was thick. You could see through those videos, you could almost reach out and grab it and touch it and taste it. That is how volatile, how amped up that room was. And as I said, saying that statement verbatim, not deviating from it in any way, shape or form, was the biggest show of contempt by this board and by Dermot Desmond via his son that you've ever seen. They might as well have just walked up and spat in everybody's face that was sitting in that, in that hall. That's what they should have done. Not should have done. Of course they shouldn't have done that, but that's what they might as well have done, because it landed the exact same way. And as you can imagine, it got the reaction that you'd expect. Where it got to the stage where, again, we were once told off by Dermot Desmond himself to behave. Which I will say, I'm not defending him. I wasn't there. I think that a level of decorum has to be kept. I don't know. Did it? Let us know. Were you there? Did it at any point get too heated where such a direct and quite frankly blunt and maybe cheeky intervention was required? I don't know. I wasn't there. I've only seen a couple of videos. But again, even the wording of just saying behave, it's grown adults in here of all ages. And not just that, they are shareholders. They've got a stake in the club. They put their hard-earned money in via their shares, via everything. Now I saw this kit and stuff, the season tickets, you name it. They've put their money in. You could have at least talked to them a wee bit better. Again, bring it around and say, we understand. We understand that you are unhappy, but let's keep calmer heads. Try to speak to people the way you want to be spoke to. And I think every single bit of communication, the short, sharp, cheeky communications throughout the course of that, ultimately just set the tone. And it was probably done for fishing. It was probably done for bait, but it was also done with a lot of arrogance. They let us know on certain terms who they are. Now, unfortunately, because of that, it ended in the AGM just getting shut down there and then. Peter Law then says he's sorry to some shareholders who, wanted to sit there and just say nothing and ask questions. But because of that, it's shut down. It's all your fault. We're up the road. See you later. And that's that. It didn't get through to the Q&A, so they didn't have to answer the hard questions. It didn't get to the sort of voting stage and all the formalities of a normal AGM. It was just cut short. It was an absolute and utter shambles. There was even a wee cameo from Martin O'Neill there. So where does this leave us? Well, as I say, I was always going to give you my honest take on it. I think that it's definitely going to galvanise the feeling among the support about how this board feel about us as a fan base. The sheer contempt that they've got for us, I think, is been shown, in harsh reality. That will continue. I think that will definitely bring people together. I think maybe in some extent the board were possibly hoping for this to result in fractures in various fan groups, fan associations, supporters groups, etc., etc. I actually don't think it will have had that effect. I think quite the opposite. I think it will really bring folk together. A lot of stuff that was covered in that statement, as I say, was quite divisive, and it was really put out there in order to get that reaction. As I said, everything was calculated. I genuinely think that this isn't praise from him. That was balls of steel, by the way, for him to read that, because he knew exactly what was going to happen. And it was actually probably quite risky to do that, because thankfully it didn't. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see it getting unsavoury, but it could have blew up and got really ugly. Thankfully it didn't, because that helps the fans and it allows them to keep good face. What I would say is there's two ways of looking at this, and I said this at the top of the show. Some folk will always go with, they shat it, they ran away from it, they couldn't stand the heat. There's another flip side, which is the side that they will play, which is it was unsafe, it was, derogatory, it was starting to descend into chaos, and this is exactly what we're dealing with. We couldn't sit there in front of that. We couldn't allow that to go on. Does that play into their hands? A wee bit. It works both ways. They'll have their wee bit of ammo that they'll want to run with. But at the side, they also have the fans that will completely see through it. They'll see through the words in the statement. They'll see through that they wanted to adjourn it. They probably wanted to adjourn it very early, very, very early. Probably when we went to that 30-minute sort of break. If they had their way, they would have just killed it off at that point. And now they can slide away into the background. Celtic aren't at home for a couple of weeks. We've got a cup final, which we may well have won by that point as well. And they're going to hope that the smoke dies off and settles a wee bit. But it won't. It won't. And just in classic fashion, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but in very quick succession, they released a couple of statements. Of course they did. And I'm going to try and share some of them up with you just now and read through them. I don't want to make this death by a million statements, but yeah, there is some things here. The first comes out, we've got, well, I say the first, this is one here, 608. It's given supporters update. The club has recently communicated with supporters regarding the action taken. This is because they mentioned, Ross Desmond mentioned the Falkirk incident. We also reported that we called the Safety Advisory Group meeting. The investigation of the incident, the Falkirk match, involved around 100 members of the Green Brigade and took action by applying a suspension to the group for 3 home matches and 3 away. As well as informing the group, the club wrote to the season ticket holders and published a statement for all supporters and a video relevant to the incident to ensure that we're fully aware of the circumstances and that we're caused to act. Police Scotland announced that they commenced an investigation as well. We know that. They then talk about the suspension and that some Green Brigade members got tickets elsewhere and accessed the standing section, as we well know. They've then said they've had correspondence with the Green Brigade explaining their decision or concerns regarding conduct, sought confirmation regarding to comply with the suspension, and critically, the safety management regulations to all supporters, in the respect of which, of course, the club is legally obliged to enforce. That is true. They've got standards they've got to enforce. Why they tell us that? We know that. The Green Brigade has not provided this confirmation. Again, I don't know if that is the case. This is a freshly laid statement tonight. The club provided an update on the 18th of November, explaining the concerns and highlighting legal obligations with regard to safety of everyone at Celtic Park and working there. It then goes on to say, they talk about the statement that was made against Mark Hargreaves, who has been appointed at safety at Celtic. It says he was among the representatives of the club at the safety advisory meeting shortly before it started at 2:30. Northcliff Celtic on social media connected to the Green Brigade posted a social media with an entirely false allegation. And it reads, Mark Hargreaves, Celtic FC Head of Safety, Security and Operations, is coordinating a campaign in conjunction with the police's former employers to target Celtic fans and their families. This was in that statement. This is what they're referring to here. The post also repost an earlier message with a photograph of him in uniform. This is not only an example of the North Curve posting images of Celtic employees simply because they have previously been employed by Police Scotland. The North Curve post yesterday was very serious and concerned development, and the club is carefully considering next steps in light of the developments. As a result, the club's in no position to address the safety advisory group process and further management of these issues, including interaction with the GB. It then basically goes on. There's a bit there talking from Michael Nicholson, talking about the role of Mark Hargreaves at there, obviously mentioning about the general sort of back and forward with the Green Brigade nose and the North Curve standing section. It's basically just, again, they're just continually going back and forward with the fans. It's a bit of a statement war, and they are just wanting to throw that out there. Again, what was this the time to discuss these things? Was this the time to keep on, throwing more petrol on the fire? Like, just walk away from the whole thing and do what you thought you were going to do, which was just let it calm down. Again, they're obviously, coming out and wanting to address things because they don't agree with the content of statement. As I say, I haven't personally read through the Green Brigade statement, so I can't comment on it. I'm just reading that out as a recent statement that they put out there. There was also a secondary statement which basically went out after the AGM, which was short and sweet. That says, regrettably, due to a continuing disruptive conduct of a small number of individuals preventing an orderly management of the AGM, we were required to conclude the meeting earlier than planned. Such conduct is completely unacceptable, hugely disappointing, and while the events are completely out with our control, clearly we regret the impact on shareholders who were deprived of the opportunity to take part in an orderly and constructive meeting. Chairman Peter Law called a poll on the resolutions at the end of the meeting, the results of which were made available at once. Did that happen? I've heard from no one that actually happened. Like, I haven't heard anything at all. And they then put out another, the one that I read about the reference to the Falkirk. 2 minutes later, they put out another statement, just sort of, again, summarising the AGM and what went down at it. Statement City. Absolute statement city. So to come back and go full circle and bring out a wee bit of the Ross Desmond, here it is.
By aggressive, irrational factions. We will not be railroaded by those whose only vocation in life is to be anti-establishment and by those who try to degrade the club. Our focus is on what matters, improving this club step by step, systematically, without ever risking its future. Improving recruitment, investing in data analytics, upgrading facilities, enhancing the stadium and trying to make Celtic stronger in every way.
So that was a wee bit of the video that was leaked out there, him saying that, and obviously you can hear the sort of response that it got. Nobody was having it, nobody was buying it, and as we say, it was just another slap in the face. So let's have a wee conversation then, because after it, we also saw Martin O'Neill on Sky Sports, and I've got to admit, I am very disappointed. Very, very disappointed in Martin O'Neill's words. I am trying to still be a wee bit objective, as always I am. In case you missed it, he basically says it was, paraphrasing, unsavoury. It was disappointing. And he then threw out a wee classic of, I wonder what the great Jock Stein would have thought of this. A man who's always called for unity amongst the club. Unity is key, and we've no got that. I thought that was disappointing. I think it was misguided. I think it was backing his pals, let's be honest. And I say backing his pals, I hate to say that about a guy like Martin O'Neill. But he is, listen, he's been brought in there, as we well know, by the hand of Dermot Desmond, and he's maybe been put on, well, of course he's been put in the spot, he's been thrown at a press conference and asked questions, but I think that turning it round onto the fans and using somebody, a figurehead like Jock Stein, as a, I be looking down on you with disgust, I think that's poor. I actually believe that Jock Stein would have been voicing and echoing the thoughts of the fans. A man that's infamously said the football without fans is nothing. The lifeblood of any football club the most important factor. Above all, some folk maybe say right on a par with what happens on the pitch. Of course, the players are vitally important, but we are the lifeblood. And I think that to use a great man to throw a bit of shade on a situation and almost turn around and indirectly, but still directly enough saying, disappointed in yous all, disappointed, that's not what we need. There's a million ways that you could have done it, Martin. A million ways that you could have done it. Now, Fly Now was saying, yes, Martin's been getting a hard time off the fans today. He saw the press conference and honestly he's between a rock and a hard place, he thinks. He thinks his witty remarks were calm in the situation. I really don't know. I cannot look into that. I cannot look into it that way. I think that he doing what he think was right. Martin O'Neill throughout this has been the proverbial human shield for this board. Let's be totally honest here. He's the human shield, the buffer, the goodwill card for this board in this temporary regime. Because we all know that if it was just Maloney and the other guys, mental, place would be on fire 10 times more than it is now. But having him there is a wee bit of human shield that, buys a bit of, sort of goodwill with the fans, and performances have been going quite well. And we love to see it, nostalgia trip and all that. But he's a human shield today as well, because he's not going to go out there for people that he's doing a favour for. Let's be totally honest, he's doing a favour for, and he'll feel obligated to do right by them, by whatever means. Do I think he would have shared that thought if he was sitting on TalkSport and wasn't in the temp manager's job? I don't know so much. I think he would have still said something along the lines of, it was sad to see that it got to that stage, but he understands the fans' frustrations. That would have been the way to say it. But as I say, he's also trying to potentially shield these guys that, as I say, are Dermot Desmond will be a close friend of him. I'm sure the rest of them will be as well. Rightly or wrongly, it is what it is, but that's what he'll be doing. And what I hope coming out of this is, I really, really hope that this doesn't erode away at the goodwill that Martin O'Neill's built up, because I'm seeing a lot of people, mixed reactions. Some are even turning on him and firing him in with all the board. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. Do I think it was stupid wording? Do I think it was garbage? Do I think it was poor, misjudged? Absolutely. But I also understand that he's right in a fucking hard place. And he's got to try. Has he got to toe the party line? I guess he has. I don't want him to toe the party line. But he must really, his stress and pressure and questions he shouldn't have to be answering. And the board and the actions and the activity and the mess they've got us in have put him in that position. I just hope that this doesn't erode the faith, because we are in such a precarious position. Celtic are so fragile at this moment in time, off the pitch, on the pitch, that we need every single ounce of support and goodwill to the players and the coaching staff that is possible. We need to squeeze every ounce of positivity out of ourselves and support this regime, to try, not the regime upstairs, this regime on the board, on the pitch, sorry. We need to support them. And I don't want to see boos and visceral stuff getting aimed at Martin O'Neill because of a comment that he made. I say it again, misjudged, absolutely, 100%. But between now and whenever, we may well get this bloody new manager, and who knows? That's the guy that's going to be there to do us. He's the guy who's going to be there to help us. He's the guy who's going to be there to try and make it happen. And he needs that support. So please, I implore, I beg everybody out there, do not let the actions of today or what Martin O'Neill says skew and turn your focus onto him, because that will then radiate onto the squad, and it could get very ugly and very horrendous quick. We're in a point where we've got a wee bit of a spring in our step. We've been doing well domestically, take Europe aside, but there's a lot of tough games coming up, starting with Saturday away at St Mirren. There's a lot of harder games, away games coming up, huge games. We need to navigate these waters. We need to get through it, and we need to do it together. as a fan base, supporting those people. You might not like what Martin O'Neill said, but take it for what it is. He's only going to be here for a short period of time. Let's get behind him. Let's not sour on a guy who, let's be honest, at 73 is doing an immense call of duty to come in when, let's face it, who else would have done it? Neil Lennon? You kidding yourself on? Gordon Strachan? No thank you. It was the best of a horrendous bunch. Let's try and get behind Martin and the boys. But as for this board, well, as it says here, a turning point. The board is finished. I believe so. I think that today is a watershed moment. That's pretty clear that this noise isn't going away. That's what they see as noise, disruption, toxicity, as they've put it. I don't think so. Is it toxic? No, I don't agree with that. I think it's direct and it's honest and it's heartfelt. I will say again, as I've always said here, moving forward, the collective, the fans in the stadium, anybody needs to negotiate these waters in a responsible manner. What we don't want to see, and what I don't want to see, is emotions blown over. We've had a sight of that today. It got shut down. I'm not blaming, before anybody misconstrues, I am not saying that the actions of the fans in there are, it's your fault, you fucked it, and that, not at all. I think fans were right to vent their anger at them. I do believe it should have came round a bit, and it was vital that we got to the end of the meeting. It didn't happen. Let's shelf it, put it behind. But let's harness it in the best way possible. Let's not go down that route again. We don't want to see sharks getting thrown and all that nonsense. Let's keep it, let's hold counsel. Let's try and sit there and do it properly. Amp it up, the visual displays, the chants, whatever it needs to happen, the boycotts, they seem to be taking, and a bit of an effect. We're getting early slashing on prices of merchandise. So these things are starting to show a wee bit of a pinch. We need to keep that going. But the important thing is, if Celtic fans are going to win this war, get meaningful change at board level and move these people out, the only way that we can do it is maintaining the moral high ground. Do not descend into disorder. Do not descend into an absolute ruckus. The only way that you can fight the fire of the corporate body is in a similar type of way. So the next meeting, if it's a collective with them, if it's a fan group, whatever it may well be, let's go in there and let's tackle it on a language that they can understand. We cannot go every single time into the shouting matches, because that won't work. It won't work. And the more often that happens, it will eventually just start to play into their hands and just allow them further to dig their heels in, because that is exactly what they want. It's the reaction that they want. Let's not give them the enjoyment, the satisfaction of, as I say, in their minds, confirming that's what we are dealing with. That's the type of people that our fans are, because that is what they think about it. So do not project this caricature version of ourselves as fans. They think that as knuckle draggers, uneducated idiots that couldn't possibly have the best intentions of this club at heart. That's the way they will see the vast majority of the fan base, I believe, because we saw that through their language and the looking down at their noses, the behave, the sit down, I'll have no problem doing this, that you've got to have 12 and then you'll be out, all that kind of stuff. They just set up, they put the barriers up right away. Don't give them further ammunition to do worse, because that is what they want. And Celtic fans now more than ever need to come together, pull together, and continually keep the message that this board are not fit for purpose. We'll be continuing to do it in platforms like this, on our podcast, all the other great podcasts out there. Go and check them out. They'll be doing it. Social media, replying to club messages, even if it's just something as simple as the picture with the board members with the no sign over them on the official channels. Those kind of things. It's about a continuous, harmonious message. And I genuinely believe it will eventually pay off, because there's so many easy wins that this board could do. Today was an opportunity for an easy win. To sit there, try to speak to us on a level, absorb what was to come their way, put on their big boy and girl pants, show that they were being a wee bit sort of tough, that they were able to sit there and take it, that they understood why they were in a position, that they understood why they were coming under scrutiny, to sit there and just absorb the hits and then explain. They chose not to do that. They chose to trail us, to sit down, pat us in the head and patronise us. They need to change. They need to change their approach. The Celtic fans moving forward, do we need to change our approach? I don't think so. But the one thing that we do need to maintain, as I say, is the moral high ground. Let's not slip into carnage. We need to keep it completely above board. We need to keep it, moral high ground. That's all I've got to say about it. And thank you to 420 there for posting that up. So people are asking, what's your thoughts? I'm going to try and skim through. I've went about an hour. Don't want to go too long, as I say. So there's a question here that's from Roscoe saying, do you think that the collective wandering up and demanding change to the agenda and AGM process was responsible, given that the warrant was representing the entire room? If I'm being honest with you, 100% honest, again, always try to look objective. I think that I don't really know. Having never been to an AGM, I think that moving up and saying we want to down tools, forget your plan, tear it up. Right, I understand why it's been done. Right, I think it's probably put the shutters up further at their end, where they went, right, they're not going to tell us how to run this. They're not going to tell us. I think it probably, from both sentences, got maybe the footing off. They got the footing off bad with their welcome tone. But then to jump in 2-foot it, perhaps, maybe. I personally, if it was me, I would have went with the red cards. I would have went with the booing. I would have went with the sack the board stuff. I would have went with, occasional, you're talking garbage, all that kind of stuff, right? Let them know. But when there's calls for an element of decorum and sort of calm, personally speaking, if I was there, I would have simmered down a wee bit and I would have chose my moments to react and put out questions. Because, as I say, I think that those folk that we're dealing with, they're so stuck in their ways. They think that they're so above everybody that they see the fan level, Joe Public, as being beneath them. So you kind of need to play it. It's a game. It's a game of chess, and I think you sometimes need to do it. I think that if there was a putting a hand up and can I ask a question type of thing, it might have been a better way of doing it. They probably would have rubbished it, but I think regardless, it was important, and I'm sad to see that we didn't get to the question and answer, because that was the bit there that I think that's when we really could have put them under pressure and asked them questions. We didn't get that opportunity. We didn't get the chance to ask them hard questions that they would have had to explain. And that's unfortunate, because that really, let's be honest, that was the chance. And again, depending on what way you want to look at the narrative, they ran away from it. They didn't want to answer the questions. And then the flip side that they'll play is we would have answered your questions, but it got out of hand. It's a rock and a hard place. And it's a shame, because I think there would have been some phenomenal questions being asked in there. There would have been some really hard questions getting asked in there with a lot of shareholders. And the main important thing was, it wasn't just people that were there with proxy voting power. There was a lot of other people holding up those cards that were just like you and I, that were just regular shareholders, not part of any group, and they were unhappy. You saw the videos of people leaving on Sky Sports. You could see there was a lot of unhappy people there, and I'm sure they would have got asked a shit ton of very uncomfortable questions. Would we have got the answer that we wanted from them? No, we wouldn't have, but we would have at least been able to ask them. And then again, in terms of better ammunition for the fan cause, when they didn't answer them appropriately, or they tried to wriggle their way out of it, it was just multiple layers. At this moment in time, what we've got is the playoff. They're no fit for purpose. They couldn't handle it. They ran away. And that's great, but it's also not as good as it could have been. I would have rather have seen them getting asked some hard questions and then exiting for the hard questions, rather than exiting because of a couple of boos and a couple of jibes at a ridiculous statement by Dermot Desmond's boy. So that's where I'm at. But listen, it has been a bit of a rant. It's been uncharacteristic, but it's been so emotionally draining this day. I cannot believe I can't believe. I hate saying that because I kind of do believe it. I could see it. I could see it going this way. As I say, let us know if you were at the meeting. Thoughts below, thoughts on statements, thoughts on Martin O'Neill. Where do we go from here? That's the big question for me. Where do we go from here? Because right now at this moment in time, the disconnect between the fans and the board, it's a gaping chasm, man. It's the Grand Canyon in width and breadth. It is absolutely in length. It is completely, utterly hundreds and hundreds of miles. They're in space. We're on Earth. That is how big the chasm is. Do I think it's going to get any better anytime soon? Absolutely not. Between the stuff that's been going on with the fan groups back and forward, with the bans, with the sort of pushing and shoving statement wars, it's no going anywhere soon. They've got a wee tiny bit of respite because we're not at Celtic Park for a while. They'll be hoping that sort of calms things down, but I really don't see it. But again, on closing on that, the fight is righteous. We must move forward. We must continue to put pressure on this board. We must keep calling them out. We will continue to call them out. We encourage you to continue calling them out. We continually ask every person out there who cares and loves this club to point out the wrongdoings of this board and demand for more. You are not entitled. You are not ignorant. You are not a knuckle-dragging moron for wanting this club to be better than it is. That is our right as fans, to demand the very best. They claim they want the best for our club. We want the best for our club. It's up to us to try and force those people to do what is right by this club. And it would start with a shake-up in the boardroom. Let's not hold our breath, but that's what it is. And another thing, getting a bloody manager in. How embarrassing that we're apparently so close to Wilfred Nancy, and then we get the bombshell off. There's been no official contact. What is it, Celtic? Come out. There's another bit of communication you can do. Give us a statement. Tell us what's happening with the manager. Stop stringing us along. You're stringing us along. Every single facet of your responsibility, every angle that you are meant to take care of, you are taking the piss, proverbially, out of us fans. Give us some true, meaningful, honest, transparent communication. Don't just keep throwing out statements that tell the fans that they don't know what they're talking about, that the fans are wrong, that the fans are the problem. Do what you've got to do. Open up this honest communication that you tell us you could do better. Let's start hearing about it. You talked about your plan. What is the plan? Spread it out to us. Have you got a plan for next year? Have you got a 2-year plan, a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan? Let us know. What's going to happen with the manager? When can we expect the manager? Our interviews ongoing. What's January going to look like? Are we going to invest? So on and so forth. Stop hiding behind statements that blame everybody other than yourself. Come out, own it properly, take a bit of accountability, and let's start making steps forward to purposely and meaningfully engage with fans in a way that is going to try and restore some level of harmony between fan base and club that's going to be beneficial to everybody around the club. Those that are running it, those that are in the stands, and everybody further afield, even the fans that are sitting watching at home, because guess what? They don't even care about any level of fan, where you pay a season ticket, you pay through the door, you're watching on telly. Right now, the attitude of this fan base, this board suggests they don't care about the fan base in any form, way, shape. It doesn't matter to them. So I want change, and hopefully that comes about. But as I say, the fight is righteous, and we've got to keep our heads in this. You're not going to win this war if camera heads can't prevail. We need to keep the moral high ground and keep holding it to account, but do it in the right possible way. Anyway, listen, hundreds of you watching there. I know there was 2 streams. I haven't got a clue how that happened. Absolutely ridiculous. But regardless of what stream you might have been watching, where you're watching up and catch up, thank you for the continued support. As I say, there's about 30 of you that need to subscribe to help us hit 3,000. And about 45% of you that watch haven't subscribed. It costs nothing. Go and do it. Help us support it. And we will continually be on here and pushing and asking for better from the board, because like you and I, we want the best for the club. We want us to thrive, and we want us to be world class in everything that we do. Well, that's us for now. There's a big game, by the way, tomorrow night about 8 o'clock, in case you forgot. Let's hope we can get through that one. It's a tough game against St Mirren. 3 points, please, Celtic. And yes, as I say, get behind the team. Get behind the manager, despite what you might think about how you worded these things today. Back the team, back the manager, sack that board. That is what we're talking about. We'll be back to cover that. But until the next time, take care of yourselves. And as always, hail, hail.